Totally Football Show. Today, Champions League, the road to Brent. 4 second legs, 1 broken Tuchel toe and a bit of a limp midweek all round. We'll be talking that. And Premier League, Liverpool Man City, Klopp v Pep, one last time for our league. Will Aston Villa show Spurs up, or is the biggest Tottenham up danger Villa's new wage figures? And are we witnessing the worst Premier League team ever? All that and more in this Totally Football Show. March the 7th, listener. Thank you for being with us. I think you're going to enjoy today's show because there's Charlie Eccleshare here. Hi, Charlie.
Hello.
Fresh back from Dublin.
Very much so, yeah.
Nice. Duncan, you're back as well. Duncan Alexander, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah. Where from?
I don't remember.
Where were you last week?
I was just...
What the hell?
I was just not around.
All right. And Seb Stafford-Bloor, who's always here. Back-to-back Totally Football shows for you, Seb.
Producer Charlie locked me in the studio.
Locked you in.
Won't let me out.
And you also just done the Athletic FC as well.
Locked in the studio.
You're like Sean Paul back in the noughties. Remember?
That's not how I thought my Thursday would start, but yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
Alrighty.
I am like him.
You are. Listener, did you enjoy the Champions League last 16 second legs this week? Was it the most meh last 16 round ever?
It's been said, but I quite enjoyed it.
Did you? What did you enjoy, Duncan?
Well, I watched the Bayern game on Tuesday, and then I watched Real Madrid on Wednesday, and it was quite refreshing to have 2 games not involving a Premier League team. It took me back to the 90s when English teams would all be out by this stage.
And Blackburn were a distant memory.
Yeah. So in that sense, I enjoyed it. But yeah, I think we've got to remember that the last 16 draw wasn't super exciting. But
At least those 2 ties had jeopardy as well.
Yeah.
They were the only ones, really.
Right.
But it could be setting up the best quarter-final draw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bayern was settled. But
all the big clubs went through, PSG,
Exactly.
Real Madrid, Bayern Munich and Man City. Next week's games, I think, look a little bit more...
But this is the
fun.
reverse of a World Cup where favourites all go out at the start and everyone's jumping around excitedly. And then you get to the latter stage, it's like, oh.
I always say this. Remember 2002, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And everyone was delighting at the early upsets. Then it was like, oh, hold on a minute. We're watching like Turkey against Senegal in a quarter-final, and this actually isn't that great. So,
Well,
like, you pay for it sometimes in the last 16, but hopefully the quarters will be
my prediction is when the
heavyweights.
quarter-final draw is made, people will be dancing on their
In the streets of neon.
Yeah.
Okay. As I say, 4 big clubs through to that quarter-final draw. Bayern, who saw off Lazio 3-0, the brace for Harry Kane. There was a brace for Kylian Mbappe Tuesday night, as well as PSG missed their usual exit and saw off Real Sociedad 2-1. Wednesday saw Man City defeating Copenhagen 3-1, becoming only the 3rd club ever to win 10 Champions League matches in a row. Weirdly, they won all 8 Champions League fixtures this year and scored exactly 3 goals in all of them. Bizarre. And the other game Wednesday night was Real Madrid-Leipzig, which finished 1-1. 2-1 on aggregate, though, crucially for Real Madrid. Seb, RB Leipzig's finishing.
RB Leipzig's performances, Jimbo, since the turn of the year, really, really in trouble. Actually, to the point where this surprised me, because Leipzig were probably better here than at any other point since the winter, the resumption from the winter break. And yeah, the chances missed were a problem, but actually there's a bit of life to their football and a bit of RB-ness to it, a bit of verticality. And I was worried about Real for a little bit, at least. It was, Lewis and Pender had that great chance. Yeah. Sesko had that. There's that moment when a forward goes through on goal and he's got a couple of teammates in support, misses a chance, but then when he misses the chance, he can't even look at the teammates he hasn't squared it to. So we had one of those, which was great. Yeah, he did a great, I'm just not going to listen to you having a go at me sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, as a casual observer, they looked pretty good. I was surprised that they have been so ropey. If only they still had Timo Werner, then, they could have missed some more.
We did say this at the time, bit more verticality, bit more kind of disappointing end results.
Real, meanwhile, recording their lowest XG of the season in the first half, 0.09%. But that's kind of what they do until it matters, I guess, Real Madrid. PSG looked better in their game against Real Sociedad. I don't know if you caught this. Aguasil, the Real Sociedad manager, saying there was a lot of praise for Kylian Mbappe, who scored both goals. Clinical fashion. But Aguasil was saying, no, this PSG team, they're brutal now.
Well, it's kind of post-Galacticos PSG, isn't it? I did enjoy Mbappe's finish because Thierry Henry had been talking about
Mbappe, but his own finishing on Monday Night Football and how he perfected that kind of far post finish in the inside left channel with his right foot. And Mbappe, used the legacy of Henry because the keeper kind of moves to cover that finish and he whips it near post. A finish I associate with Wayne Rooney. I remember him kind of bringing that to the mainstream in kind of the mid-noughties. It was a lovely finish.
We did an article in The Athletic, Mark Carey, a few months ago, looking at the near-post finish because it is on the rise. And the player least likely to use one in the Premier League was Anthony, which is the least surprising news I've ever heard.
In what way least likely to use?
Well, because if you close your eyes and imagine an Anthony shot, it's the same shot every time. I'm looking for the far post, dribbling in.
I have a complaint about this.
Okay.
So I really got very excited about the net breaking for Mbappe's goal.
Yes.
And such a comprehensive finish. It broke the net. Aesthetically, that was not. It was like a little bit of a tear in the net. It's not it doesn't really fit what was being described. I felt like I was missold something.
The ball to be sailing into the stands with the net wrapped around.
Well, yeah, because with the goalkeeper as well, like one of those arcade games you used to find in La Manga.
There was a character in Roy the Rovers called Hotshot Hamish, whose special move was to hit the ball so hard it would rip the net out. So,
Gigi Reaver, I think, would surely be able to do that. The Rumble of Thunder, who sadly left us, who once broke a small child's arm who happened to be standing behind the goal while he was warming up for a game.
Adriano.
Not with the ball.
Sure, yeah. It was Adriano, the Shot Power 99 merchant on Pro Evo.
Brutal. PSG through Bayern against Lazio. But there was so much jeopardy. You talk about, what was the word you used? When something's...
in the balance?
Yeah, but there's a word for it. Is it jeopardy? I don't think it is. It is jeopardy.
I think I said that. Yeah, I think it was.
Did you say jeopardy?
I think it was jeopardy.
All right.
I said, yeah.
PSG through anyway. Bayern. There's a lot of jeopardy. A lot of people heaping the jeopardy on this one. They were a goal down from the first leg. Potentially, it was Thomas Tuchel's final appearance. Had it gone awry, but it very much didn't. After Ciro Immobile failed to put away a decent chance, so De Ligt had just nicked it a bit with his head on the way over. Harry Kane stepped up with the first two goals. He's now on 33 in 33 this season. Madness.
He did, for his second goal, he did a thing, Seb, I'm sure you picked up on this as well, like one of his superpowers is he's so good at not being offside.
Ooh.
And so when a goal like that goes in, normally I'm thinking, I'm looking at it, I'm waiting for the VAR check, this is going to be close. With Kane, I have complete trust he won't be offside. He is so good at staying onside.
He also did a really impressive sort of stutter before he shot, which really lined him up to get the shot. A lot of players would have just rushed that and maybe spoon over the bar.
Did you? I was just wondering because I was with Michael Owen last night,
who
knows a thing or two about a thing or two, who also maintains that and I hope he won't mind me saying this, but that Erling Haaland is a really terrible finisher, but he doesn't want to say it publicly because he thinks he's going to.
I was saying. Well,
were you saying?
Well, no, I said on. I was saying on Tuesday on Football Cliches that Haaland, the whole. It's a collector's item, don't adjust your screens, Haaland's missed a really big chance. Haaland does miss big chances, but all the best strikers miss. The most prolific strikers generally miss the most big chances. Right. That often happens because they get them. Like you'll often, the Golden Boot winner will often miss the most big chances of a season.
You still expect them to outperform their XG though, which is what he's not actually doing this year.
No, not this year, but he generally does.
I mean, I guess the player...
I wasn't saying he's a bad finisher.
No, to be fair, I've dressed that up a little. Mo says that he's just not he's a bit overrated in terms of finishing.
I mean,
he's an incredible player.
Michael Owen never reached 20 goals in the Premier League season, whereas Haaland has, I'm informed. So, swings and roundabouts.
Almost doubled that, didn't he, last
But I mean, if you look at players who overperform their XG year in, year out, like Son does.
Yeah, he's the one.
He is a very reliable finisher, as is Harry Kane. So I see the point.
Okay. But the reason I mentioned Michael Owen anyway was that he was making that on the Kane goal, that same point that the ball actually comes behind, and he has the way that he adjusts his gait, and as you mentioned, doesn't rush and whack it.
Best gate adjustment since the Blair Witch Project.
Very nice.
So not to crowbar Timo Werner back into the conversation, but this is one of the issues with him, that he has that trouble sorting out his feet because he's a kind of not a sprinter but speed skater. He has that sort of very swift Sergio Aguero-like gait. But then when it comes to actually adjusting his feet to pivot and take a shot, he can't really do it that well, and that's kind of been one of his issues.
But generally, people like Werner are outliers or Son. Like most people, like what XG has revealed is actually like a lot of players' superpower is getting lots of chances. Like that's the hard bit, and if you keep doing that,
it's the Gary Lineker thing, isn't it?
Kind of,
always
yeah.
find yourself
Yeah.
in that spot.
Exactly.
It looks like fortune, but it
totally.
never is. It's
so
just,
like you can afford. It means you can afford if you're Haaland to miss the odd big chance.
and that's where Haaland is good. You know, he does.
He'll just keep getting there.
Like Seb with podcast appearances.
Yeah,
Exactly,
just
yeah.
Keep on coming. But I
If you
also-
keep putting yourself out there.
Doesn't matter how badly I do. It doesn't affect my mentality.
Yeah.
We go
I keep
again.
saying things. I keep interrupting. It's like it's a winning mentality.
Yeah, XP.
I wanted to ask Seb about perhaps the more important figure for Bayern
Thomas
against
Müller.
Lazio. Yeah.
Thomas Müller. Thomas Müller's relationship with the Bayern fans is a wonderful thing, because I think if you look at him and you look at his set of abilities and the kind of the general level of finesse, it doesn't look like a top tier professional footballer. And yeah, I remember having a conversation with someone about him who said, from Bayern, who said, nowhere else in the world is Thomas Müller going to be an elite player other than for this club, because he embodies the region, he embodies kind of an attitude towards football which tallies with this idea of mir se mir, we are who we are, this perfect representation of how the club sees itself when it looks in the mirror. And so how lovely to see him score a classic scruffy Müller goal, hits him in the face, but is in exactly the right position at exactly the right time for the ball to hit him in the face, to kind of, and I think like if before that happens, I think Lazio looked okay. They looked like they had a little bit of belief in the way that some of those Bundesliga teams have done this year. And then that's the moment, that's the Bayernness of the occasion coming out, and everybody thinking this is going to be fine. Just for tonight, this is going to be fine. We don't have to talk about Tuchel's future.
Is it just for tonight, do you think so?
Yeah, because I think the trap that Lazio fell into was, oh God, we're in the Allianz Arena and playing Bayern Munich, and there's Harry Kane and Thomas Müller and Joshua Kimmich, and we're just Lazio, and we're actually not at particularly good this season. We're quite average.
It's a fair match report, I think.
It's comprehensive, but you know, you put a Manchester City against that side, and you expose Bayern Munich to kind of a level of precision in the attacking areas. I'll worry about the defence. I'll worry about the fullbacks. I'll worry about the midfield, which has looked imbalanced all season. And actually, I worry a little bit about the goalkeeper. Hasn't been the same since he came back. He's kind of, you know how an X Factor, you get people who say they're really confident just before they go off on stage and, like, you know, butcher something terrible. They kind of, no, I'm really confident. I'm really looking forward to this. Neuer's like that at the moment, because you have this kind of veneer of invulnerability to him normally, but he's a little bit out of touch, and his kind of timing is not quite right, particularly when he's playing the ball out from the back. And so you have like a bit of a fragile player in a confident person's mindset, which is not a great combination. So I'm a bit worried about them, a bit worried about him, and a bit worried about Germany.
Right.
with
You've been
Neuer.
worried about Thomas Tuchel's toe?
No. I've reached my Tuchel saturation point over the last couple of weeks, because there is no other topic in German football other than Thomas Tuchel, and you just kind of get hit over the head with it every morning.
Okay.
So
Even though he's going, I mean, there's...
Yeah, because there's this conversation now about, well, you know, maybe he goes now.
Right.
And so we've entered like stage 2/3 of it, and that doesn't really have an answer, because there's no sort of Hansi Flick or Jupp Heynckes in the background to come in and do some statesman-like stuff. So it's very much kind of, well, what happens
Thomas
if this...
Müller player manager.
Interesting.
Gus Hiddink?
I kind of enjoy that. That'd be a nice sort of reassuring throwback. To kind of, it'd make me feel quite young if that were to happen.
I bet it still looks exactly the same.
Yeah. Hair perfect.
Excellent. Duncan, you were going to say something, though.
When we were talking about Harry Kane's finishing, the first goal was great as well. You know, like only a header, but again, just that wherewithal to just redirect it so accurately.
Providal was a bit sort of hologrammy. That sort of passed through him, didn't it? I think I want my goalkeeper to save that one. But
yeah, in which case you won't have enjoyed Grabara's performance for Copenhagen against Manchester City. Bayern were 3-0 winners against Lazio. Manchester City 3-1 against Copenhagen, 6-2 on aggregate. Easy, or they make it look easy, as Pep would I think underline.
Trying to work out the difference between those two things. I mean, they are.
Copenhagen are a team who did give problems to teams in the Manchester United, Bayern, Galatasaray, certainly in the group stage, and City didn't really, even a very, very much reserved City side.
But I guess we saw on Sunday the gulf between City and United, didn't we? So they are incredibly efficient at putting away teams like this, and they made it look like a complete mismatch. They'll, I suspect, have done that to better teams than Copenhagen this season. It's hard to imagine anyone but them winning it, I think.
Okay. Poor finishing's Erling Haaland is going to 41 goals in the Champions League in 36 appearances. You probably heard that he matched Sergio Aguero's career Champions League tally. Aguero, though, did it in 79 games. To repeat, Haaland's done it in 36.
Imagine if he could finish.
Imagine. All right, City next face Liverpool this weekend. Let's park the Champions League for now and move on to that. Sunday at Anfield, for the last time, it's Pep v Klopp battling for our league. Producer Charlie has got emotional. Very nice piece that Charlie's done. I might play it from here, actually. Let's see if I can do that. It sounds a little bit like this.
We can be successful. And when I sit here in 4 years, I think we won one title in this time. I'm pretty sure.
Here in England, what I saw in the last 3, 4 or 5 years, you have to win every day and every day.
Pep Guardiola is coming!
We cannot define our period here together without him. We cannot define our period without Liverpool. It's impossible.
Left foot! He's done it again. Mo Salah. Still Salah.
The best rival I ever had in my life.
Pep is the best coach in the world. I think we all would agree on that.
Next season we can have time to go dinner together.
Tremendous Indian Belosh kind of vibe to that. We are not so different, you and I, my old rival.
The whole thing together was a bit Baz Luhrmann-ish, wasn't it? Had that kind of slight quality to
I
it.
like that. Yeah, quite the bromance.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're going to face each other on opposing benches for the last time in the Premier League, although potentially it could happen in the FA Cup this season. But still, it's no small matter. These two and their iterations of Liverpool and Man City have defined, the last 7 years of Premier League football?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
I
much.
think a lot of people thought after Wenger-Ferguson we'd never really get another, seismic rivalry like that. And I would argue that 2018-19 is probably the highest quality season in Premier League history.
Oh, even more than this. When you got 3 teams.
Yeah, I think that all 3, it's more exciting this season, perhaps.
None of these 3 will hit those points tallies.
Yeah, and that all 3 teams going for the title this year are good teams, but all have a few flaws. Whereas I think City and Liverpool,
that was insane.
It was
season.
they were perfect.
Yeah.
Week after week.
I love the tension of those games. I love the way they gripped you. Because actually, do you remember when back in the day when you'd get the big hype from a Sky or a BT about Championship Sunday or whatever,
Grand Slam Sunday.
Yeah, a Grand Slam Sunday or a Red Monday,
or
whatever.
4 majors.
you would have a kind of a letdown where those games held you in a way that very few rivalries during the Premier League era. I can't think of many Clásicos beyond the kind of the pantomime. Mourinho versus Guardiola years, but that wasn't kind of the same. We were admiring the excellence of the football in this rivalry, which
and it
was
often
fun
wasn't
place.
as close. I mean, what was good, and I like the way this evolved because 17-18 was that 4-3 that Liverpool won, and it was kind of that was their emergence, their arrival, and then some of the games, just the high quality. I remember it was, I think it was 21-22 season, maybe October 21, and they drew 2-2. And it was just the most. I still think it's probably the highest quality game football I've ever seen. Collectively, it was just unbelievable.
They've had a couple of first halves where it's been so off the charts in terms of energy and intelligence that it almost takes your breath away. This is what football can actually be. But And it's easy to kind of forget that in the kind of...
Yeah.
I think in 10 years' time, people will look back at this period and be like, whoa, these games were just insanely good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing, like you mentioned the Ferguson Wenger, it didn't have, between the managers, didn't have the edge. That would have elevated it if you got the sense that they really didn't like each other.
I quite like the sort of bromance
You think?
that's quietly played out.
I think it's more of its time. I think
Maybe,
you
yeah.
look at the way players were and the things youth team players had to go through in the 90s and 80s and stuff. That was like it's a very different era, isn't it, I think?
More sanitised now.
So, but anyway, what you're saying is folks from 10 years in the future will envy us for probably running water and a lot of other things, but also the chance to watch a Pep.
I think in the
City
same way,
against the Klopp
if you
Liverpool.
watch, it'll come up on social media all the time, like, the United playing at Highbury with Keane and the Vieira in the tunnel and stuff. And now there's a wistfulness to it, and it's like, you remember seeing it at the time, but you didn't appreciate the kind of the weight of history that it had, because you can't, because it's happening in real time. But I think as you look back, you do, and I think we definitely. I mean, the montage of stuff that's happened in these games, like the John Stones clearance that basically changed the destination of the title that year. I mean, it was millimetres from being a goal, and then I love the Edison. As Jota closes him down.
That picture is amazing.
Just so calm, just side-footing it on his goal line.
Yeah.
It feels like at times it was quasi-religious, because you had two managers who represented different things in the game, the kind of high priests of what they stood for tactically. And so you'd have this really wild Liverpool, like wildly energetic, and the way the crowd used to kind of gather around them was just an amazing part of that rivalry. But one team who wants to be as wild as possible, another who kind of seeks control, and you're kind of as a neutral, you're sat in the middle of it watching this amazing contrast. That's a really, I suppose, subtle aspect of it, because you don't often get that at the very top of the game. Like, you get a lot of very, very good players, really highly paid, smart, innovative managers and big clubs, but you don't have that kind of third, fourth element to it, which I think made it. Those were genuinely, as you get older, I think, like must watch football games get a little bit scarcer, because you have other stuff to do, you got wife, kids, all that kind of thing. But these always were. Like, you don't miss those games, and that's a real privilege to have that, I think.
We should remember as well that when they came in, there was the traditional sort of English football sneering at both of them. Obviously, Klopp came in with his heavy metal football gegenpressing, and everyone was
sneering at
a little bit. Yeah,
really?
There was basically. I was at Opta back in those days, and each week people would be desperate to get the distance covered figures, as if it was this sort of like, the answer to Klopp's thing. They just run harder and faster.
And then there was Fraudiola.
Klopp learning to tackle
his
and all
first
that
season.
stuff. Yeah.
What are tackles?
Yeah.
Tackles.
They lost 4-0 at Everton and
Leicester.
Which is, I think, still
lost
his
to
biggest
Leicester.
ever defeat as a manager.
Yeah.
And,
Is that right?
But Klopp rather, I was looking at this for a piece this week, and it took him a long time. I mean, 2 years into his time at Liverpool, they were having some absolute calamitous results. They couldn't defend.
Which brings it to this weekend nicely, I think, because obviously the big thing that he needed to solve was getting a goalkeeper, which they did with Alisson. And obviously Alisson's out for a fair bit at the moment.
Although Kelleher, they've now got
He's
two.
been decent, but I do think that is,
huge.
What was the Salah goal? Was it last season before, where Alisson did his trademark sort of flat assist?
Oh, yeah, last season,
Yeah, and obviously that won't be happening this weekend.
Well, also, I mean, Pep has the one-time City have won at Anfield under Pep was behind closed doors. It was that January 2021. So that is a big thing for him.
He's the sort of manager that buys into the Anfield crowd thing as well. And he's not a sort of like, it won't affect us. He's like, he fully acknowledges. And managers that do that do tend to get unstuck.
Yeah. I mean, and Klopp's Liverpool, did they ever beat City at the Etihad?
But Alisson not the only absentee for Liverpool. How much do you think their lengthy injury list is going to impinge on the prospective quality of this?
I think they'll miss, I know we talked about Edison outmanoeuvring him, but I do think they'll miss Jota in this game. He's sort of player that would do. I mean, Salah is reportedly back, so that's big.
Trent out, Alisson out, Jota out, Curtis Jones around, Gravenberch also not expected to be back until after the international break at the earliest. Liverpool are tonight, as we record a Thursday evening, off in the Czech Republic taking on Sparta Prague. So, I mean, I hope they'll make it through that.
You'd normally say play the kids, but that's
what they're going to do anyway.
So,
I've thought for a little while, and I'm sure this will be disagreed with by a lot of people. I think Liverpool will come third. And I think so. I expect. I I don't think they'll win.
Do you think it's because of their injury list? And
Partly. I just think they've won a lot of games this season last minute and, in a kind of crazy way. And obviously that has generally with this team been framed as that's what champions do, and that's, riding the wave of the emotion of Klopp. What title-winning teams generally do, or in City's case anyway, you'll get some of them. You have to over the course of a season, but generally you're putting teams away with clinical efficiency. And Liverpool remind me a little bit of Arsenal this time last year. We know how that ended up with these kind of crazy late wins, but ultimately they couldn't really sustain it. And I know that was framed as they're too emotional. With Liverpool, it's framed as no, emotion's good. It will carry them through. They'll do it for Klopp. I just think of those three teams, they to me look the most vulnerable. And I think, yes, they'll get their players back and then they'll start winning games comfortably. But what often happens is if you keep having tight games, and I know that they've won 3 of their games before, the most recent one very comfortably, but I think some will start going against you.
Okay. Since the turn of the year, Liverpool 8 games, 7 wins and a defeat in the Premier League. City 8 games, 7 wins and a draw, the 1-1 with Chelsea. And Arsenal will meanwhile be facing Brentford on Saturday. 7 straight wins, the chance to go top for the Gunners then. Yeah,
just as a not counter, but I think the atmosphere obviously is going to be off the charts for the Liverpool City game. 15:45 kickoff never happened in Premier League before on any day. So we're watching history in terms of scheduling.
What's the thinking there, Duncan?
Well, the police wanted it moved earlier, but I'm not sure.
Drinking?
Yeah, I'm not sure 45 minutes makes that much difference.
That's what, a pint and a half?
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Couple, maybe.
All right. Well, it's pointless trying to call it, but enjoy it.
Tune in.
One last time.
Yeah.
And Arsenal, when are they playing? Saturday
tea time.
Saturday tea
More
time.
conventional.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And that's at home to Brentford. Arsenal, who gave Sheffield United a 6-0 kicking on Monday, with Odegaard kicking things off after just 5 minutes. Daniel Story saying, is that the earliest in Premier League history that a goal has been scored and been coming?
Yeah, it had been coming. I mean, it was crazy.
If you get the chance to rewatch this on the Sheffield United YouTube channel, you can hear not rewatch highlights. Let's just clarify that. You'll hear one of the great co-commentary performances I've heard in a while, because some of these club channels it's pretty partisan, and it's most partisan in the co-comms chair, and whoever it is, forgive me, I don't know, but you just hear him groaning not as goals are going in, as moves are developing, and the sense of inevitability is sort of looming in front of him. It's not one for Sheffield United fans, probably, ironically.
Is it a former player, do you think?
It must be a former player, but it's also it kind of flirts with the line of not just disappointment but admonishment, which is tricky area, but not a fun watch, but an interesting one.
If you're into Sheffield United and admonishment, stay tuned, because Duncan's going to be weighing in on the Blades a bit later on. But in terms of Arsenal, who've now scored 21 goals across their last 4 Premier League fixtures, what a state of grace they're currently in.
I mean, I'm loving it in the sense that they battered West Ham at Christmas and couldn't score. Most touches in the box out of scoring, and everyone obviously pivoted to they just need a striker.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out sometimes that creating chances is more important than putting them away.
No, it's been a big one for underlying numbers heads.
Yeah, what a month. But yeah, I mean, they looked tremendous, and I think I said a couple of weeks ago that the team that's conceded the fewest shots on target has won the league the last 7 or 8 seasons, and that's Arsenal. Their defence is
I mean, their
off the charts.
expected goals against is unbelievable since the turn of the year. I mean, it's so much better than everyone else.
It's barely 2.
It's barely 2 in 7 games. And
2 across, not on average.
No, 2 across
2
those 7
games.
Expected goals against 2, basically. I mean, they're not per game. They're posting figures like 0.2. Fairly regularly, things like that. What was the closest? City were the closest to them for the kind of the year. Yeah.
So it's there so far. It's actually unsustainable, probably. But and I guess this weekend
they don't have their keeper, which I think is significant, because that's been a big talking point. Is how much is the fact that Rye doesn't have to make any saves partly down to him?
One on Monday,
but it was ruled out. It didn't count, did it? Monday was another game they didn't face a shot on target. No Raya. They drew this game last season. That was the famous VAR, no offside, forgot to draw the lines.
Would you just remind us of that? Because it led to Lee Mason's departure from Pudmore.
Yeah, I mean, they basically, they were obsessing over the wrong bit, basically. And in their sort of funk of focusing on one thing, they forgot to actually then draw the offside lines. They kind of missed that. They were looking for a previous offside. It was bad process.
Rare example of Mason getting admonished in English culture as well.
It's quite funny as well because Paul Tierney, who gaffed last weekend, his punishment, or they say it's nothing, it's not a punishment. He's now being put in the VAR booth for this game,
right? Which
the scene of the biggest gaff from last season. Like it's not a low-profile position to be in.
VAR is the kind of ultimate check and balance on refereeing performance. Surely it's the last place you want to put somebody.
Refs must absolutely hate when that email comes through.
Yeah. Do you think it's a phone call though? Like, do you think
advance.
Howard Webb calls you hey Macy, Lee, whatever, this is what we're going to do, and your heart sinks because you know that
when you see that number coming up.
Well, you know the discourse is going to be about you for 3 days. No, like you go, I'm going to be the VAR and VAR.
Can you order your lunch in the canteen?
Is this an appropriate punishment? And why should we be punishing people by sending this VAR because it's so important? That's what we're doing now. So we've stretched into a 5th day.
Yeah, I suppose it's better than the thing where they put them into the EFL.
Yeah, that always feels weird.
Because as a fan
That's
of an EFL
with
team,
the reserves, isn't it? Though?
Whenever you get a Premier League referee in League One, they'd showboat because it's like, I'm the most famous person here. That's what they think. But also increasingly now that they're so used to VAR, they actually let stuff go. Because I think they're used to there being this, and there's no checks. It's not.
Do you wear your Premier League kit as a referee when you referee in the Football League?
They will often trot out with the old FIFA. I've done the Champions League
I've done
well.
It before.
Badge,
yeah. Okay.
All right.
Put their personalised boots on, like John Moss did.
Anyway, Arsenal Brentford is Saturday afternoon with the chance for the Gunners to go top. Brentford, who are not in the best of form, unlike their opponents, just 2 wins in 8 since the turn of the year, although they did draw with Chelsea last weekend.
And their underlying numbers are a lot better than where they are. But yeah, they did. And I think Thomas Frank has been getting a little bit peeved with, certainly there was some boos at half-time from that game, which
They weren't drunk. Oh, right, I see what you mean. He's been getting a bit emotional the last week, but like you say, I think they run a bit of a tough run. They've got a quite easy end of the season though, so I think they will be fine.
Okay.
With Bomo coming back after the internationals, hopefully for them.
By the way, on the subject of underlying numbers, it's so tight at the top of the table that it could come down to goal difference. And were it to do so, Man City may reflect on the fact that when they face Sheffield United, unlike Arsenal, who managed a plus 11 goal difference in the 2 games, City barely managed plus 3. That's rubbish.
I mean, Arsenal have scored the most, conceded the fewest. But as this has happened before, Spurs in 16-17 scored the most, conceded the fewest.
It's only happened twice. I think in Manchester United in 97-98, the other team to do it. City, obviously, the team that has won the Premier League on goal difference. So the only time.
Yes.
Fair point.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, that's what the top 3 are up to this weekend, plus Brentford. Next up, touch on some of the other treats in store. Listener, do you listen to the Totally Football Show? Can I put you down for a yes for that? In which case, we want to hear from you. At The Athletic, we're asking you to fill out a quick survey about you and your podcast habits. Go to theathletic.com/survey24. 3 of the people who fill out that form are going to get £100 worth of Amazon vouchers. So get in there. I've been to have a look, and it's a lot of questions about what you'd like to hear or not hear. So, Amazon vouchers or not, there's your chance to shape the future. There's a box more Seb Stafford-Bloor. There is, actually, said. Yeah. Anyway, that's at theathletic.com/survey24. And you can also find the link in our episode description because we're really keen for you to go there. Now, top 3 are doing their thing this weekend. What about the race for 4th, or is it 5th? How's that coefficient looking? Does anybody know who's up to date on the coefficient?
We'll get an update on Friday.
Okay.
In terms of probability, the Premier League is basically the Bundesliga and Premier League looking set for an additional place. Yeah, after the last round of games, Serie A and Premier League were the 2 very likely. I mean, obviously it does depend on what happens each week.
Yeah.
But as we know, we could have Manchester United cheering on Liverpool in the Europa League final and City in the Champions League
Seb could be
final.
cheering on Arsenal in the Champions League.
I quite like that. I'm still quite confused about the new European format, but I like the kind of the investment that could result from having this kind of the extra system. Because if you, I'm from an era where you want bad things to happen to other English teams that aren't your own. Cause
Has that era passed?
No, not really. No, it's still going. It's just it's dimmed. It hasn't passed. But if you have a kind of like, if you're, for instance, if you're a Tottenham Villa fan and you're watching, I don't know, Brighton play Roma on Thursday night, you're kind of invested in a way that you might not otherwise be, because you're kind of, it's your route into the Champions League, or
a bit like the old mysterious fair play thing. That
Exactly.
You suddenly hear in like April.
Exactly.
This team that's 14th.
Yeah, that was mad that suddenly teams could be in Europe for a good fair play record.
You also like the valuable part of it is that there's no weighting across the different tournaments. So like your points gained across Europa League, Champions League, Conference League are all the same, and so I think that kind of, in a sort of Nations League-y way, does extend interest across the week a little bit.
It
has that vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of nebulous definition, no one's quite sure what it is, but it's important sort of way.
But it's interesting you say that, Seb, because I was thinking about this recently, and I don't know if this is a modern thing or it's just always been the way with football, but increasingly now, it's become so like selfish in your way of thinking. You're like, how does this affect my club? And then some games where they don't, you're like, I really don't care, and I'm not sure I'm going to watch this. And I don't know if that's a modern thing, or has football always been like that? Yeah, can't.
You see, as someone who supports a team in League One, I enjoy all of our entrants in European.
Are you a kind of a well wisher for all English football
Pretty
teams?
much, yeah.
That's nice.
Because I think when if you were just watching Champions League football on ITV back in the day, and there was only really one team that you got to watch, it felt like you go to school the next day, and it's a big event what's happened, and you get to kind of laugh at your Arsenal supporting friend and your Man United supporting friend who's regularly lording it over you during the 90s. It's a little bit like that, but now I suppose there's so much of it that you can kind of, I don't know, even out your, not sure what the word is, Jimbo.
What the word?
The word, the kind of the desire to see not bad things happen. No, I'm not going to lean into no.
I believe the Germans have one.
Yeah, he's not going there.
No, it's not quite that. It's more active than that. It's not misfortune. It's kind of an active.
Well, okay. So the Italians would call that gufando.
Nice.
Okay. Which kind of means wishing bad things, but
not in a Schadenfreude way.
Pushing your energy. It's not when you enjoy bad things having happened. It's when you are pushing your energies towards.
It's more proactive.
Let them not score.
Score, absolutely.
Like a voodoo doll.
Very much so. Yeah.
But I think that has become increasingly prevalent. I know it's always been there, like it's such a big part of football fandom. But I do think, like with social media, so much is about. Your rivals have lost. Like a lot of the time, that's more revelled in than we've won a game.
Your PSR is bad.
Yeah, that's right. So that's
a new one.
Keep your banter on the pitch. Any PSR banter
is terrible.
Is as low as it
gets. PSR banter.
I'm going to talk about PSR now. Actually, thanks so much. Because
Villa,
Villa in fourth spot on 55 points. Spurs fifth. Spurs Villa's opponents this weekend. 5 points behind, but with a game in hand. Fifth might be enough. Man United are a further 6 points off in sixth. But Villa Tottenham this weekend, overshadowed perhaps by the news that Villa's wage bill is going to mean they're going to have to do a clear out or fall foul of the profit and sustainability regulation.
Spurs, who are doing so well in PSR terms.
Right, so well in fact. And they're going to be doing even better once they've bumped their season ticket prices up.
Well, yeah. Hey, I know. That was a grim announcement.
But this Aston Villa story, which I saw the headline and moved straight on because it's quite dry. But how important and...
it's a situation where they probably need to sell Jacob Ramsey because he's a homegrown product, but now he's injured again. So
why do you need to sell Jacob Ramsey?
Well, because if you sell an academy product, you get full fat cash as opposed to
pure profit.
The amortization.
When do they need to sell him by?
June 30. So it's a really important date. That it's almost like a first transfer deadline of the summer.
No, it is. Yeah, it's become the sort of precursor to the main one.
And if they don't do that, they are almost certain to fall foul of the PSR regulations, which have hit Everton and probably Forest already this season.
It's possible, but bear in mind as well, like Spurs were among the clubs who looked at Jacob Ramsey in January, and there was speculation: will Villa have to sell? I think Villa's logic was, well, we've got till June 30th. We're better off keeping him, hopefully getting Champions League, and then we can still sell him for a similar amount, if not more, potentially.
Right.
Come June 25th.
So if they get Champions League for next season, by dint of staying top 4 or 5. Will that be enough to ameliorate the imbalance in their wage bill?
So
Next season,
in the longer term,
but it won't count in terms of the previous 3 seasons.
So they still need to sell.
Yeah. So,
I mean, Douglas Luiz is another one who obviously he doesn't have that pure profit element, but people are looking at him as someone who could command a big transfer fee. A lot of Premier League clubs have looked at him previously.
Okay, Spurs don't have any of these issues.
No, Spurs were the only team basically who spent in January because they had a bit of headroom, and it's a triumph
Daniel
for those
Levy playing the longest
Yeah,
game
well,
of all.
Daniel Levy has always been a believer that these rules would come into place, they would have teeth, and they'd be important. And so, yeah, it's looking good for him in that respect. But obviously, yes, then the announcement about season ticket prices has really turned, because I think there was some goodwill, right, Seb? Like a lot of fans were saying, yeah, in January, this is almost vindication of Levy's approach.
Charlie, Spurs have this habit though. Every time there's kind of goodwill developed on the pitch or kind of created, Spurs have a habit of making announcements. So if you go back to the beginning of the season,
it was Socios, wasn't it?
It was Socios.
Yeah.
So they had that great fan event where Ange talked to fans. Even people kind of volleying quite in a friendly way with Levy in the event itself. For context, Spurs already make more money per game, 4.8 million, than any other Premier League team, and like the 4th most in Europe, I think. So everybody knows the extra 6% that's been put on season tickets. Also, the thing that's kind of gone a little bit under the radar is the winding back of concessions for supporters 65 or over by the start of the 25-26 season. And there was a quote this morning that came out from the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, which I don't even know what to do with. I won't read it verbatim, but the last part is... during this meeting, this is a meeting with the club, we disagreed on several areas, and as a result of our input, changes were made. So my question there would be, what the were you trying to do in the first place? What is it that you were trying to do? And in aid of, we're sustaining more costs than ever, like the cost of putting matches on is growing. Yeah, the cost of life for everybody is getting greater everywhere. 6%. That's the difference between someone being able to take a child or not, or being able to introduce like a new supporter, a new generation of fan. Because if you don't take people to games, they're not going to watch the sport.
And it's a problem across a lot of clubs. The average age of season ticket holders is just going up and up.
Like you hear sort of stakeholders in the game talking about what can we do to kind of build interest in the game. Let's start selling 10-minute packages. No, let people go to the games, because I wouldn't be a fan if I didn't go to a game.
In Germany, there is this project. Dusseldorf,
So
basically give the tickets away. So
it's a pilot scheme at the moment, Jimbo. So Fortuna for Alle is 3 games in which everybody, home and away fans, can all attend for free. Dusseldorf, Fortuna are a big club, but they've kind of fallen on hard times in the Zweite Bundesliga. And their season attendance average is about 29,000. Both of the 2 games that have taken place so far, over 50,000. So you think of people who've gone in who couldn't afford it, didn't previously think that football was really for them. It wasn't a kind of spending priority. And you get people in the stadium, people are like, I like this. I like the community aspect. I like being close to it. What are you doing to kind of future generations with this kind of stuff?
I think if you were to start football now, if you were to kind of bring all the elements in, here's a stadium, here's the people who are going to sit in it, the role that they play in football, but particularly the Premier League, you would the idea of charging them to make the atmosphere, to make your product
mindless.
Would be
it's absolutely mindless. Yeah, it's also like, what's your benefit here? Like you know, for what are you gaining? I don't know, the cost of Fraser Forster's contract.
I mean, a valuable thing, but
no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it was how much Lloris was being paid, wasn't it? While he was.
No doubt. But these are the things you're worth. Like you're willing to alienate your fans over. Yeah. These tiny marginal gains relative to what a football club earns.
And one of my biggest bugbears in modern football is you get people very high up in UEFA and FIFA and all over the place who'll say, "Oh, modern kids they don't like watching football." They do.
You just
they
can't
just
afford
can't afford
to
maybe
go.
to see it on TV or go to games. And if you take them to games, they really like it. They really do.
The thing that's so problematic as well with this is how exploitative it is, because we're such addicts, we're so hooked, the product is so good, and they know that. Like, and there's not a particularly revolutionary or insurrectionist culture in this country, I don't think. Like, we do keep going to games. Very few people don't go to games, but also because it's so tied up with their family, with their friends. It might be, loved ones, that there's a sentimental value. Like, it's so exploitative.
Like in a lot of countries, people sit around a table and have chats and eat food, but we can't do that here, so we have to go to football to
basically,
form a structure to the weekend. And
people will be lost. But seriously, it's so huge for people. And the product's too good, so we can never properly turn away from it.
It's just so many goals.
Yeah.
3.25 goals a game.
This PSR is so good.
Anyway, that's Villa Spurs, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock on Sunday. Yeah.
Well, because of the Liverpool City game, which isn't ideal for Villa, given they'll have played in Amsterdam tonight as we record.
Yeah. What a big Thursday for British clubs.
For the coefficient,
For
no
the
less.
coefficient, potentially.
Just look after
Villa.
our coefficient, lads.
Yeah,
Come on,
please.
come back. Be like
Villa away to Ajax, Jordan Henderson klaxon. Brighton are in Rome. Woof, what a game that'll be. And West Ham at Freiburg, who Rafa on Tuesday said was suggesting probably wouldn't pose David Moyes' side that many problems, but I guess we'll see. No point really in previewing it, because it'll be either
It will be in the
or
past.
happened.
Look after Grifo, make sure Gregorich doesn't hurt you. I think West Ham would be okay.
Boom. Also, a big Thursday night for Premier League sides in Europe. West Ham are at Freiburg. Brighton are in Rome, which should be a terrific match. But as ever, English fans going to the Italian capital, running the risk. Apparently, there's been a couple of stabbings. Thankfully, not life-threatening, but more of a kind of blade in the back of your buttocks or legs for Brighton fans, which is horrible. And hopefully, the rest of the visit goes off a bit better than that. West Ham this weekend are hosting Burnley. West Ham back in form after 8 games without a win. Paquetá returned to the side, then down 1. Back-to-back Premier League matches and scored 7 goals in the process. Burnley, by contrast, haven't. Burnley, Vince Kompany has lost 20 of his first 27 Premier League matches as a manager. Only Mick McCarthy at Sunderland got to 20 defeats quicker. Bad as Burnley are, though, there's someone doing even worse, Duncan.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, with a quick mention of the fact that Brighton this weekend are facing Nottingham Forest. In fact, I don't even need to mention that, do I? Yeah, I tell you what, why don't we hear about that after this? Sheffield United are at Bournemouth on Saturday afternoon. Duncan, you've written a piece for The Athletic. Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There was a lot of worst team ever chat after Monday.
Okay. Duncan, Sheffield United.
Yes.
There they are.
Bad.
Bottom of the table. And here you come in, 2-footed, with are they the worst Premier League side ever?
Well, I was asked to consider it, so I did.
Asked to go in 2-footed.
Yeah.
Okay.
3-footed.
Who are the contenders in what you term the dismal pantheon?
The dismal pantheon. I mean, obviously Derby County 07-08 are 11 points. Possibly will never get beaten.
Okay.
Swindon Town in 93-94, they're the only team to concede 100 goals, albeit 4 games more in those days.
So far, right.
So far, yeah. We got Sunderland in the early 2000s who not only once but twice came up. And I think this is my sort of key point, really, is that Sheffield United 3 seasons ago put in one of the worst performances we've ever seen. They didn't win until their 18th match, had 2 points after 17 games. They were very bad. And I almost think that, like, if you have a season that bad, you should probably not come back to the Premier League for quite a while. Or if you do, at least...
Should be banned.
Yeah, like, you've really let everyone down. Go away and think about what you've done. Don't come back 3 seasons later and then, at the moment, Sheffield United are on course to concede 101 goals.
101 goals.
I think
Which would be way worse goals against per game than Swindon.
Yeah, they're miles.
Swindon-
Goals per game at the moment. They're miles clear of everyone else.
What would Swindon's goals against be adjusted for a 38-game era?
Good question.
Probably,
How many goals was it?
It was 100.
Exactly 100.
Yeah.
Exactly 100.
All right, Charlie's on
Charles
that.
crunching the numbers, but yeah,
So
I
essentially,
think
by the metric of points won, Derby are unassailable.
they are. But I do think that if you take into account
90.5.
90 point for the old XG era earlier than we thought, but I think if if Sheffield United do break the 100 barrier this season,
so they're currently 28 off that with 11 games to go. Is that right?
Yeah, and the way they defended against that, they almost gave up. I've never seen a team just.
I'm telling you, go and find that YouTube video on Sheffield United.
I do want to see that.
Believe me.
So I'm gonna say because I think football fans, no one's going to remember sort of goals per game figures when you're talking with your mates in the pub, but people remember round numbers. If they get 101 goals conceded, I think they've got a very good shout of being worse than Derby, especially when you combine it with the season 3 years.
It's hard though, because that Derby point tally is always so
iconic.
That it is. Yeah, that one win as well.
There's a lot that also happened during that season, which makes it quite a good story.
Was that the Paul Jewell?
Yeah,
don't say it. Don't. Yeah,
I think Derby went on banter terms. They definitely. It was a more sort of
a banter era as well.
Calamitous. But I point out in the piece that Derby that season, you could argue, was one of the highest quality Premier Leagues ever, because it was.
That was a 3-horse race, wasn't it?
Yeah, 07, 08. 3 of the big 4 got to the semi-finals of the Champions League. It was an all English Champions League final. So.
And the other got to the quarters.
Yeah, and Derby, walked into that situation and they weren't good enough. But I think teams now have got more about them. Sheffield United could be doing better than they are. So
could be doing better than they are.
Yeah, just to say it
Duncan
lightly.
Alexander. There they are, bottom of the table, 13 points along with Burnley, but with that minus 50 goal difference, which. Looking tough. For all the potential of PSR penalties out there, you feel, okay. Bournemouth, who will be hosting this weekend, are by contrast out of trouble. 11 points clear. Very nice. 11 points clear. Very nice. Good. Yeah. Bournemouth, by contrast, who started out looking like they might be the team to beat that Derby. Bournemouth, by contrast, who will be hosting them this weekend, started out the season in similarly dismal fashion, went 7 league games without a win, but they're now 11 points clear of the bottom 3. And have got some nice fixtures coming up. They've just beaten Burnley, hosting the Blades, then they've got Luton. Elsewhere this weekend, Man United, Everton, that's Saturday lunchtime. Brighton are up against Nottingham Forest. You've got Palace, Luton, 3 o'clock Saturday. Wolves, Fulham at the same time. And Monday night, it's Chelsea, Newcastle, which should be a good watch, eh? Newcastle matches.
No pointing up. Yeah, Newcastle playing quite well again.
Okay.
Ish.
Yeah, amazing stat. Their games are averaging 3.8 goals per game, the second highest ratio by a team Premier League season, behind only Liverpool in that mad 13-14 Brendan Rodgers season. Very entertaining.
Is Pochettino in trouble, do you think?
It sounds as though they really want to stick by him and they really want to, for this not to be another Graham Potter situation. I guess the fact they're still in the FA Cup as well means there is the chance the season could still end well for them.
2-year contract.
Yeah.
That comes with a bit of ominous organ music, doesn't it? Like you just think there's no deterrent there, which would worry me if I was Pochettino.
They've dropped back down to the bottom half of the table, 2 points behind Wolves in 10th, although they have a game in hand.
He's sort of lost the away fans at Brentford were not very polite on his birthday, which was quite sad. Not quite Trevor Francis levels, but
the idea of bringing back Mourinho, I would absolutely love it to see it unfold, but I can't believe that would be anything other than a really awful idea. No.
Yeah, in terms of your team. Building a team for the future in that.
Yeah.
Next
season, everybody else having something
tremendously entertaining. Yeah, I would love for it to happen.
Right.
Absolutely. But
next season will be the 10 years since Mourinho last won a league. So it's a nice little round number reminiscent package. Bring it on.
Okay. Man United, one of Moo's former outfits, are hosting Everton Saturday 12:30. Chelsea Newcastle looks like it's going to be entertaining. This one perhaps less so. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't have much appetite for more Man United at the moment.
Squeaking out a win against the team they should beat.
It's more that the story doesn't really change very much game to game. It's not like it's a developing narrative. It's just the same issues presenting again and again. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not.
I hear you. They won this reverse fixture, this 3-0 at Old Trafford back in November with Garnacho scoring what is very much contender for goal of the season. But Everton were arguably the better side in that game. They had 15 shots more than. Oh no, it was. Oh, hang on, in November.
Yeah.
They had 15 shots more than Man United in that game, but still lost 3-0, which is kind of the Everton way this season.
Curious beast, Everton. Just when you watch them play and you watch them when they build up a head of steam, you think that I don't want to see my side go against them, and yet like they seem to be. Duncan, this would probably be the point at which you inject some underlying numbers, chat. But it doesn't always feel as if their results tally with their performance or the tenor of their
rarely
football.
so, yeah.
They've been the biggest underperformers, haven't they?
They have,
yeah.
And yet they will also throw in the odd game occasionally where they're just not very good as well. So, like they drew against Palace the other week and they're just very underwhelming. So, I mean, they haven't won. They don't win at Old Trafford very often, but yeah, I mean,
Lost to West Ham. Like
that was one,
brilliant goalkeeping.
Yeah,
Areola was
fine,
fantastic.
Fine form. So, I mean, they look okay at the moment, as now their deduction has been reduced, but another one might be in the post.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. It's their longest winless run in the Premier League for nearly 30 years, which, given it feels like this happens every season, is kind of amazing.
They are 5 points clear of Luton, who are in the last of the relegation spots. Luton do have a game.
Big week for Luton though, because it's next week. They play Bournemouth.
They play Bournemouth.
And,
Before that, on Saturday, they're up against Crystal Palace, who are 8 points clear of the drop currently.
Sorry, I was just going to say for Luton, I do feel the Liverpool, how Liverpool keep, or I was saying Liverpool and some teams, and United was certainly in the bracket of winning tight games, and we saw United then go the other way. I kind of hope and trust for Luton that some of these home games, they've had so many really tight, narrow home defeats that some of them become wins or draws.
Yeah, their last 5 home games are actually all quite winnable, so I think that should be their focus, really, win those. I mean, if they can get anything from Palace and Bournemouth in the week, good, but as one of Britain's earliest Luton backers last summer, it's not looking quite as promising as it did.
Looking more promising than one of your other predictions, of course.
Yeah.
Wolves are taking on Fulham Saturday at 3 o'clock.
That's the sort of battle of the, I don't know, sort of overachievers this season, maybe?
Yeah.
They've both been, like in different ways, but they've both been really good, I think.
You'd hope that Marco Silva and Gary Neal will share a red wine after the game and, give each other a bit of a hug.
Reflect on a job well done.
Do coaches still share a red wine?
It does seem to have died out quite a lot.
You don't hear about it very often. Like, you don't hear like a jovial. It was a nasty Portuguese paint stripper of a wine. You don't hear much of that.
Was that a Sir Alex Ferguson thing,
with
which
a Mourinho
essentially bequeathed?
Yeah.
No, not just that bottle, but the
whole
ethos of you will come to my office and.
Well, I remember there's a Brian Clough anecdote about how he played a cup tie. I think he must have been. I think it was at Derby at the time, and he played a cup tie against Revy's Leeds, and he had a few tumblers out, and he was ready to sort of, welcome Revy, and Revy didn't turn up, and that was kind of the genesis of all of their. Yeah,
you can't disrespect the one. I also feel that United's advert with Casillero del Diablo undermined the scene quite a lot.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
They say there is a new devil.
I imagine these two, like the new breed of managers, would be more kind of energy drinks or that
I think
sort
natural
of thing.
wine.
A Carabao.
Huh?
More natural wine, red.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Gary O'Neill would be too sort of hyper-focused.
Lucozade Sport.
Yeah, I think so.
A Huel.
It would be more about...
a Huel.
Just downing gloopy mouthfuls of Huel while they talk about
It'd be about rehydration, I think, even for the managers after a game.
Many thanks to producer Charlie for the new product placement deals that we got sorted for this week. But yeah. Well, there you go. That's Fulham and their trip to Wolves, kind of, tangentially. And that brings us to the end of the Premier League games in prospect. I'm looking forward to it. Seb, you're heading back to Germany tonight.
Sure am.
When no doubt you're going to be across some massive Bundesliga affair.
I'm doing bits and pieces. I'm going to go and interview Rocco Reitz, the Borussia Mönchengladbach midfielder, who he's been a member of the club since birth, and he's now playing for the team.
Since birth?
Yeah.
His parents.
It's a really lovely story.
Since birth?
Yeah.
Like as he was born?
As he was born, his dad was filling out the forms. Maybe. I'll ask him.
Excellent.
But don't ask him because it might ruin it.
Well,
he might reveal that's not the case.
I'll lie about what he says.
Charlie, sorry, Duncan, you go ahead.
I presume Liverpool City will be a big deal in Germany as well.
Yeah, Klopp remains a huge deal. There's a lot of, I mean, Jurgen Klopp seems to feature in about 60% of the adverts on German television around sporting events. So very popular. And Liverpool, as a result, very attractive.
What products does he do?
He's got a couple. He does Peloton. He does a sort of a financial services where he's standing wistfully on a beach watching a windsurfer, and it's about financial management.
Okay.
He does Erding a Weissbier, where he's sat in a pub and...
We have that one over here, I think.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
And a couple of others that have kind of faded over time, but he's very, very popular. And Liverpool, as a result, are also quite popular.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, then. Well, safe travels, Seb.
Thanks, Jimbo.
We'll miss you.
I'll be glad to get out of the studio. I'll miss all of you, but I'll be glad to change environment.
And you're back in sort of like April, probably sometime.
A month or so,
See how it goes.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, I hope you have a splendid time. Charlie and Duncan, I hope you have great weekends as well. Same to Rachel and producer Charlie in the booth. And you, listeners, Sunday night I'll be back looking at what happens in all of those games. So perhaps you'll join me and whoever's in for that. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.